Thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to kind of kick off our webinar series around Excel 2016. We appreciate you guys joining us today. A little bit about myself before we get started. My name is Brian Lachlan. For those of you who don't know me personally or aren't one of our current clients, I am with Intelice Solutions. Intelice is a managed services provider in the DC metro area. We've been around for over 20 years, servicing the DC metro area and beyond. We have companies all over the globe that we service and support. And our goal is to help our clients leverage technology to achieve their business goals. We've been doing hosting for over 15 years. We also do ERP solutions and have multiple data centers around the country and around the world. I've been with Intelice for roughly 14 years, and I'm one of the 3 partners with the organization. First thing I did want to, announce is due to, very positive and overwhelming feedback regarding our webinar series. We have close to 100 people joining us today on our webinar, which is extremely exciting. It quickly, though, however, became evident that one quick tips and tricks webinar on Excel was not going to really cut it. Based on the feedback we got from our Outlook webinar and some of the requests we have gotten around things that people are wanting to know about Excel, it was very quickly evident that we are not going to be able to cover all that in just one webinar. So we are actually going to have a call to action at the end of this meeting to extend the webinar series in a couple different areas based on the feedback we get today. So today we've really focused mostly on, the introduction to Excel 2016, some of the new features. I've tried to kind of focus it in that area so that based on the people who are here and what you hear, you have the opportunity to submit questions, and then we'll focus our future webinar series in the areas we want to tackle. Obviously, Excel is kind of a big beast, and there's a lot of different things and a lot of different areas, and different people have different capabilities within it. So some people, from what we've talked about, are very interested in different types of formulas and creating very complex pivot tables and things like that. Other people are more interested in kind of the basics. And so what I've tried to do today is kind of summarize everything into the new features of 2016, assuming that most people are familiar at some level with Excel. And then after that, we'll be able to delve into the specific areas we need to moving forward. So these are the areas we're going to be covering today, and I look forward to walking through it with you. So first off, really one of the big things that came out were some of the new templates within Excel. And I know people who've already been working with Excel for a long period of time. This is that screen when they go to create a new document, they kind of skip over, right? A lot of people just either start from a current spreadsheet they already have, or they click that first top left item right there, which is the blank workbook. I do want to bring your attention to this because there are a lot of really good templates out there, both the ones out of the box, which are the ones you're seeing right now, as well as a lot you can download online. So these templates really provide you guys a very good basis for some of the things you can do. They make you look very professional and like a hero to your managers and the people you're working with, because you are already kind of coming out of the gate with something really, really positive and professional. And I would recommend, it's always easier to modify than it is potentially to create. So I do recommend you guys to look at some of these templates and to do some searching online for some really good templates out there. There are some really valuable ones, both from a personal perspective in terms of your own maybe personal finances and things like that, as well as from a work perspective in terms of budgeting. I think besides those who have specific budgeting software, Excel is often a very good, useful tool for budgeting that people kind of use. And so that's a very good opportunity to find some templates like that. So I do recommend kind of jumping into that if you have an opportunity to. So one of the examples of that is a cash flow, is just a my cash flow template, it's called. You have the opportunity to kind of click on that and start. The reason I chose this one is because it does provide some of the new charting capabilities. And you have the ability to kind of click around within that specific template and see the information. One of the good other pieces about the template that I feel like is pretty valuable coming up in the latest version is that you actually have the data. You have sample data in there. So it's not just a chart or an example of a chart. It's not just an example of a graph, but the data is in there so that you can quickly and easily edit that data and see how those charts and how those templates actually can affect your business, your personal life. Definitely, from my perspective, allows you to more rapidly develop some of the solutions that you're looking for. A little bit about the new charts that are out there. And if you jump into Excel and you can kind of go over up in the insert area and can find the recommended charts area is probably the quickest and easiest way to reach that place. But Excel has 6 new charts that you can use to kind of show off to your clients and your colleagues and that sort of thing. So again, if you go up to the ribbon and you click on Insert Recommended Charts, then you have the opportunity to choose from the pictured samples that are out there. So you can also do it a number of other ways, but I'm going to be delving a little deeper into each of the new charts and how you can use it moving forward. So one of the new ones is a tree map. Again, some of these you can kind of use them as you see fit, right? So some of these can be based on the data you have and based on the impression you want to have on your audience. There's a lot of different options that you have. The tree map is a kind of an area-based visualization that allows you to display your data in kind of a hierarchical pattern here. So you can kind of break down all the groupings of data. Each size rectangle kind of represents the quantity measure, and then you can use the color of all the boxes to create associations within the data. So it can be pretty powerful. Tree maps are pretty good in terms of visualizing a lot of data within multiple levels of groupings. The chart can kind of easily enable you to quickly see that in this case, red delicious apples have the most stock, and you can see the sub branches in the scenario enable you to see the different ages of that stock. And I'll say, although it can be pretty powerful, in my opinion, they can also kind of quickly become like a pie chart from a data visualization perspective. So it can be kind of an eye candy type scenario, but it is pretty important when you're structuring something like this to make sure you're careful about your labeling of these charts. And it can be somewhat a little tricky, but you want to make sure that your coding and your coloring are all aligned. One of the other areas, I'll say one of the other pretty valuable charts that are out there is a waterfall chart. And depending on if you're familiar with other business intelligence, you may have heard this called a bridge chart in the past. There's other names for it as well, but really it's a breakdown from a starting value to kind of an overall end result. So in this case, you're trying to visualize a financial statement by illustrating the cumulative effect of income and expenses and all that kind of stuff. So a waterfall chart can show a running total as values as added or subtracted. So it can be useful in visualizing and understanding how an initial value is affected by a series of potential positive and negative results. And all these columns are then color-coded so you can quickly tell the positive from the negative numbers. To do an actual waterfall chart, you would go to the Data tab, and you would then select and create an example, Insert Waterfall or Insert Stock Chart - Waterfall to allow you to then to insert that kind of chart. One of the other pieces, other new charts that are out there are a BoxWhisker Chart. This is an example of that, and it allows you to display different data into multiple quartiles. So For example, you have the overall data in the middle, and then you have the box. So the box in the middle shows basically the middle of the data and where it lies. And then the different what are called whiskers, which are those little kind of T-bar type things on either side, on the top and the bottom of them, are basically showing the smallest and largest values in the data set. So oftentimes, or sometimes, those can be quickly identify outliers in those scenarios. So you can see where your data lies and then where that can be expanded in different areas where there are those outliers. And it's nice to see the chart when you're analyzing how your data can potentially be skewed. And you can insert those box and whisker charts to help identify that. I'll say a very useful in terms of presenting data and making an impact is a Sunburst chart, which is new in 2016. Sunburst charts, I'll say, are kind of an extended pie chart. I'll say they're kind of a pretty pie chart, and they can make a pretty big impact. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the most useful chart out there, but there's a lot of data, and it can kind of break that down and show the hierarchy between those types of data. So in this example, this is showing based on the specific country what specific areas that they compete in the Olympics in. It is it's a very pretty chart. It can make an impact, and I'll say that's probably where the usefulness of it kind of stops. I do feel like it is kind of a very useful, depending on the audience, but other than that, it has its limitations. A little bit more about collaboration in Excel 2016. So the new overall Office product suite is a very collaborative environment. So those of you guys who are using Office 365 and OneDrive and SharePoint and those types of, I'll say, other pieces, have the luxury to be able to have real-time collaboration. So people can share ideas, they can share queries and reports, and they have the opportunity to share pivot tables and that sort of thing. Pretty quick and easy way to do that when you're inside an actual spreadsheet. You do have the share button up in the top right there. And you have the capability to do a lot of things. Microsoft's made the most, I'll say, significant changes to Office 2016 in general by providing these collaborative editing capabilities across Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and allowing people to share and collaborate on information. They've also extended it via Skype, so people can provide authoring rights. They can communicate both on the phone and through IM and email around documents and work at them and I'll say collaborate with each other real time, meaning that people can actually access a document depending on the application. They can access a document and they can be making real-time changes from different places, and those changes will be taking place in the document, and the multiple entities will be seeing those changes as they actually happen. So that's, I'll say, somewhat true with Excel as well. Excel spreadsheets can be edited in real time. However, all users, if you're working on it, have to be working through Excel online. That's a little different through some of the other applications. So, for example, with PowerPoint, if you have multiple people working in a document, you can actually download and edit the document in the client-side application of PowerPoint on your PC, and those changes will be reflected back and forth. That's not, unfortunately, at this time, that's not the case with Excel 2016. And so whenever that is actually happening, the actions by each users are going to be showing up instantly. However, they do have, a requirement that as that's happening, the file is actually being locked by the other user. So, for example, if I'm working on a document with someone within my organization or outside, and that document is stored on a OneDrive area, I've shared that document through that little link I had identified earlier. And we're both working in that document at the same time. As people are making those changes, this error message, or not necessarily error message, but a display message is going to be showing up that says this file is being locked and edited by another user. And as those changes happen back and forth, you can still collaborate real time. However, it is locked one-sided as changes are happening. So collaborative editing in Excel 2016 is a little bit disjointed, and it is kind of a turn-by-turn affair that's not nearly as interactive as working in Word documents or in PowerPoint, for example, but it is something to note. There's just a lot of data going back and forth, but it can get frustrating if you are someone who's used to collaborating in those environments, and then all of a sudden you start co-authoring an Excel document and you're running into some of these issues. So it is something I did want to identify within this presentation. One of the other things, and this is probably more for advanced users than others, but there's a lot of really, really, really good, powerful database enhancements that have been made in the Office 2016 environment, specifically with Excel. And that includes merging some of the previous, I'll say, add-on programs that were out there. Some of you may be familiar with Power Pivot and Power Query. And a lot of those essentially add-on applications really are now included within the actual application, the Excel 2016 application itself. So you'll find more options for Power Queries for doing things with data modeling, reporting, pivot tables. You can do a lot of one-click forecasting, which I'll show you in a second, very powerful tool, and some other new kind of one-button workbook sharing through Power BI and stuff like that. So with the trying to avoid delving into something that can get very technical very quickly, there are really a lot of good opportunities to quickly and easily connect to other outside data sources, whether that be within your environment or in the cloud, and then pulling that information into Excel and working within it. So that's a very popular feature within a lot of finance teams or accounting teams who love to just, play with spreadsheets and run their own reporting and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into it much deeper on today's call, but I am, if that is something you're interested in doing and interacting and connecting to some of your own data within your, say, financial systems, budgeting systems, outside association management systems, whatever that may be, please feel free to reach out to us, your account manager, myself directly. We'd be glad to kind of work with you to help set those connections up. And again, that could be many different scenarios. That can be database queries, it can be connecting directly to data, it can be a download of a file, it can be hitting an API, it can be hitting some sort of web service. So let me know. We would be glad to help you out in those scenarios. Or we may actually also, I know we've hit it a couple times on our financial management system teams webinars that we do monthly or at least monthly, but we could also schedule an additional or a future webinar focused in that area as well. One of the other really, I'll say, useful tools around in Excel 2016 is around quick analysis. It's called the Quick Analysis Toolset, and that can be, it's really just, from my perspective, a real time saver. Those of you who are extreme Excel veterans and love all your queries and do things kind of by hand the old school way with formulas and everything, I'll say this is a way of automating some of those processes. And so it really, from my perspective, saves time, and it has the opportunity to make you as the users or the power users to be able to kind of set you up to make some pretty significant analysis of your data very, very quickly. So in this scenario, after you've created kind of a spreadsheet or a table, essentially you just select your range of data, and you then at the bottom right corner, if you see in this screenshot here, you see a little icon there. It's kind of a little lightning worksheet type icon. and it's on the bottom right of the range of the data that you're selecting. When you click on that icon, you basically get a pop-up menu that appears and displays a half dozen options for what you can do with the data. And that can be from formatting, charts, totals, tables, and Sparklines. So the chart, I'll say area, formatting area, is a shortcut that really basically provides you formatting options within Excel. So instead of having to go up to the ribbon, it's kind of a quick access to using that sort of functionality. So for example, you could set up a range of data to make values over or under a certain amount appear in a different color. So it's a conditional formatting type breakdown. Or you can make it show up with like a specific icon. So one of the things we often display in some of our presentations to our clients are kind of like a stoplight, a red light, green light, yellow light type scenario. So, you know, if things are running well on a project, we've got all green lights. Things are, you know, coming up on budget, maybe we hit a yellow light. We can define what those KPIs are just based on how this formatting option is. And you can quickly and easily see the data and display that data to your colleagues or to your clients very quickly and easily just through that little lightning menu button. Other area is around the charting. So these are basically just quick shortcuts that generate common types of charts based on the selected data. So you have these kind of the quick and easy normal charts, you know, the bar chart, the line charts, all that kind of stuff. But you also have that shortcut to that more charts area that I had referenced prior. So if you want to show one of those other kind of cool new charts or graphs that I had talked about, you just click on it right there. You highlight the data, you click the little icon, boom, you got your charts there. And there actually are also recommended charts and graphs based on the data that you have selected. So there is kind of a shortcut there to help automate and make your lives a little easier and the process a little bit more efficient. There's also kind of a shortcut to the totals area. This shortcut basically has the ability to add specific calculations to adjacent cells in the worksheet. So for example, some obviously or adds a total row or a column to the table you're looking at. You can also notice that there's separate icons here for rows versus columns on the sum side. So just based on a quick and ease of use perspective, clicking on one of those two icons, obviously it will have some pretty different impacts on exactly what you're trying to do. But the goal is to, again, rapidly be able to produce effective and efficient results and allow you to ask questions of the data as quickly as possible. There's also a category that there are more icons that can be displayed at once. So there is a right and left arrows that you can kind of select and click on and scroll through to find quick and easy calculation type things within your data. So definitely encourage you to explore this option. You can still do it the old school way. You can still go up and write in the calculations. You can still do the equals and blah, blah, blah. But this is a new kind of quick and easy way for you to engage with your data and hopefully make your life a little easier. There's also a tables area. This is can be a very convenient way of creating things like pivot tables very quickly. So you can convert the range of data to a table or to a pivot table with pretty good, quick, easy way and ability to analyze your data. You can also generate several different types of pivot tables based on these shortcuts. So you have a kind of a special view of the data as you kind of hover and click on some of these options that will show you the different options and your data will be visualized as you're kind of hovering and clicking on these different options. There also is the kind of recommended views, as I mentioned, that allow you to do some of these functions pretty quickly and easily. It also, the actual icons themselves, I'll say, can be slightly confusing. So when you're looking at them, it just says pivot table, pivot table, pivot table. So they're not all that well differentiated, but you can, as you kind of summarize, as you kind of hover and click, you'll be able to summarize the data in the selected range kind of on the side there. So if you choose one of them, it'll open in its own, I'll say, separate sheet. And then you'll be able to kind of work through the pivot table views yourself. You can also go up and actually create those pivot tables. There's a recommended button that says recommended pivot tables that I would also recommend you use or to explore. And they, even if you don't get the actual pivot table that you want, you very quickly and easily can get something close and then modify it pretty quickly with dragging and dropping within the wizard and be able to get to the information that you want very quickly. Even a novice Excel user who isn't necessarily even a power user or an expert in Excel can get to the same answers in the data that a very qualified person from that area would be able to do. So it's a big time saver from my perspective. One of the other areas which I feel like is often underutilized is the Sparklines area. Sparklines are kind of mini charts that are placed inside the actual table themselves. And those Sparklines are a way of kind of showing trends within that specific column or that specific row, if you can visualize your data that way. And so you can see the trends in that specific data element as time kind of progresses or whatever other kind of other access data it's being compared against. So it can very quickly help summarize the trend in the data in adjacent cells. So they're most often relevant when the data you have kind of appears from kind of left to right in adjacent columns. So you can kind of see the ups and downs. It's a kind of a line chart embedded, or I'll say a bar chart as well, embedded within the actual table itself. One of the other pieces, I'll say from a data analysis perspective, are the overall power analytics. So this is one of the big changes that has been brought to Office 2016. Now the new, I'll say, powerful tools are now included in the ability to allow you to kind of gather data from several different data sources, apply kind of your insights to that information, and make better decisions off of that. There's, as I mentioned before, Power Query is another add-on that is now integrated into it. So there's no need to kind of install other kind of add-ons, although there are some out there that I'll say I would recommend. But you now have the opportunity to really extend Excel, connect to those outside data sources, and then be able to analyze that data from an analytical perspective. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. One really, I'll say, cool piece that I feel like from a data analytics perspective, very, very valuable is a forecast. So there's a forecast button. So if you go to the data tab within the ribbon, there's something that says forecast sheet. And so if you select your data range, so if you have you currently have a table and you currently have like a chart like this one, kind of a line chart that is based on historical data over, say, a number of years or a number of months or whatever that may be, you can go to the data tab and click on the forecast sheet and actually define, based on that previous data, what a forecast moving forward would be. It's a really cool kind of what if scenario type deal. It allows you to provide kind of forecasts of your data based on all that historical data, so you don't have to kind of do that by hand. So really quick, couple different clicks and you have it. Which is, to me, has been a pretty valuable tool that I would definitely recommend. So one area of 2016 that's pretty impressive, now it isn't necessarily as all that much usable, depending on what your industry is something called Power Maps. And Power Maps is a mapping tool, and there are a number of mapping tools in the past that have been out there, and you can integrate with Bing or Google Maps or whatever, to be able to kind of map data within a table on an actual map. So you take the data, and based on longitude, latitude, all that kind of stuff, it then plots it on your map program or interface, whatever you want to call it. So you can do things like compare data such as, temperatures or rainfall or populations or whatever that may be, membership or revenue, whatever that may be across an actual interactive map. You can now do that within the actual application itself. So you can map the data and plot, millions of rows of information visually on actual Bing Maps. So you can kind of identify and discover how the data changes over time and space and kind of create your own stories to it. And you have kind of a really good opportunity to do that. So it's really a 3D visualization tool that allows you to compare all that information. So in this case, you have all this data and you're trying to plot it somewhere. Again, it can handle more than 1 million rows now, which is a limitation of kind of the previous versions, where you're, I'll say, limited to tens of thousands. The other thing is now Bing Maps, because it's integrated with Excel and with it's all Microsoft, allows you to do these kind of data queries and everything, whereas some of the other mapping tools have limitations or start charging you for some of these queries or to plot different information. That's no longer the case. And so the Power Map allows you to be able to take all this information and then apply it over kind of an actual mapping tool within Maps so that you can see kind of an overall breakdown of kind of where things are at. And you can kind of slice and dice the data or base it based on number of different criteria or KPIs or however you want to do it. It's pretty slick option. So once you can actually go to it and go to the data tab within your within Excel, you can click the drop down menu and then you can add the data to add select data to 3D maps. So that'll basically plot all that information over the map and you can see that. So it may take a little kind of working with. We'd be glad to help you out there. So just let us know. But it is a pretty powerful visualization tool, especially when you're speaking to certain audiences like membership or organizations that receive donations or receive funding from public grants and things like that. Getting that data and sharing it with your membership community is extremely valuable, and a quick, just a different way to visualize the data can be very impactful. The other thing is just being able to analyze trends across geographic regions. Sometimes, a picture's worth 1,000 words. This can definitely help you with some of that, and it's very quick and easy to do as long as the data elements are there. So as long as you can pin the data elements to an address or a city, state, zip, that kind of thing, you can then plot the information on that big map. So something I very much recommend from that perspective. There's also a tell me function. So there are a number of ways you can use kind of this tell me piece. It's working. We're in an environment now where we want information immediately, and we don't have to. We want to just be able to Google it, right? So this is kind of the same way. Previous versions of Office and Microsoft applications had that. It's called Office Assistant, or known as Clip It. Some people called it Clippy. So a lot of people thought it was a little bit intrusive and somewhat unhelpful at times. So they kind of dropped that intelligent assistant. So they moved forward back in a year or two ago, and they've added this new version of that Office Assistant, and that's called Tell Me. And that function gives you the opportunity to really start asking questions of the information. And I very highly recommend. Some people are kind of turned off by the old experience they had, but I've found the Tell Me function very helpful in the new versions of these applications, just to start typing and find out what it's going to recommend for you. So how do I do this? How do I do this? Or just start typing in, insert bar chart or something, and it'll very quickly and easily pull that information. It also has a kind of a history of it, so it'll start pulling the history of some of your searches or some of your requests. And there's other, I'll say, more integrated versions of some of that stuff. but I do highly recommend starting to use that. As you start using it, even if you feel like it's like the smartest question in the world, or it's a pretty good job. It does a pretty good job of finding the right information quickly and providing you with the right resources. It's not just strictly a help menu as it once was. It now is somewhat, I'll say, more intelligent than it once was. So I do highly recommend that. And it's that, just so you guys know, that function's available in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook as well, and can definitely help you, I'll say, be more efficient and get things done. It is not available in OneNote, just as a kind of an FYI. But I believe they're looking to incorporate it in the future. And so it'll allow you to ask those questions and get meaningful answers to those questions as quickly as possible. One of the other, I'll say, quick and easy things that you can enable within your Excel application is something called Smart Lookup. So if you go, basically it's very similar to kind of Ask Cortana, if you guys have heard that within Windows 10 browser. You can select a word or phrase in any of the applications, specifically Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook. And Smart Lookup will basically open what's called an Insights pane on the right. And so if you highlight something or you click on something, you'll be able to see kind of the insight to that data. It essentially looks it up for you, right? So you're basically creating a connection at some level through the data to give you more information. So in this scenario, the actual number 365 is highlighted, and the insight associated with that, it basically does a Bing lookup to pull in information quickly and then display it in that Insights tab. That can be useful in all sorts of, in drilling down into data. It can be useful in terms of highlighting terms. If you're separating data from, you're separating your data elements by a specific row or column, and you may have audiences that are not actually seeing that data or don't know what that word or means. It's a quick, easy way to make interactions between that data element and the definition of it. So where people in the past may have put in like comments or things like that, Insights is just a quick, easy way that provides kind of that data definition based on kind of browser and searching right within that interface. So I've seen it be pretty powerful if used appropriately. It does consider the context of the search term within the document, meaning theoretically the idea would be it would be able to tell the difference. It's somewhat intelligent, so it would be able to tell the difference between, if you had the word bark in your spreadsheet, it should be able to tell you the difference between tree bark and a dog's bark based on that search. So it is something that I think will probably continue to evolve. When you go, you can actually turn that on, and you'll see it'll just basically enable that search to show up. And so in this case, 365, it quickly identifies the number 365 with the number of days in the calendar. And I'll say that happens with a number of other data elements as well. So that is, I'll say, the majority of our kind of overview today. I hope that was that you got some good information about the new version of Excel. We are very excited about kind of delving into our this webinar series. We've expanded our webinar series, as I mentioned before, calling it Intelice University. Intelice University, we're going to basically be adding another webinar. At least one more webinar per month. So we currently have one that's focused, I'll say, in general kind of technology terms. We also have another one that's focused in our financial systems group or accounting systems group. We're going to be adding another one that I'll say this is kind of one of the first ones of it, is this Intelice University. And so that's 100% going to be focused on kind of the tips and tricks and business efficiency and effectiveness and using applications as quickly as possible. It is free for those people. I recommend if you can spread the word and invite other people. And please communicate to us if you have any questions or want specific topics or targets or something you want us to kind of cover in our future webinars. We'd be glad to do that. Like I said, we've had some tremendous growth within our webinar series, so we very much appreciate the loyalty and you guys coming back to see us and all that kind of stuff. If you'd like to reach us on social media, here are a couple of the links that are out there. We'd love to hear from you from that perspective. And excellent. Well, thank you guys again. Appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day and look forward to speaking with you again soon.